Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Another week of just the weekly Q&A. I actually made quite a few Final Fantasy VII Rebirth videos, mostly focused on the mini games, and they all got copyright claimed by YouTube. Not Square. Final Fantasy games are kind of touch and go when you actually use the music from those games. You try to include clips from them. Because there's a lot of real copyright claims on YouTube, but there's also false copyright claims, and they have been plaguing Final Fantasy videos for years now. You can dispute them, and after, some time goes by, then, they'll eventually be allowed to kind of exist as is. You'll be given whatever monetization they would have gained, but it usually really, really hinders the ad problem that it would have, like the way the ads play on the video when it's being contested like that. Generally don't do as well for some reason. I don't know. It's just a trend that I've noticed. So I just said, you know what? I don't even feel like dealing with all that. Maybe I'll upload them. Maybe I'll still just leave them as is. I don't know. But until then, I've just been kind of living life and enjoying all the games that I've been playing this last season. I just finished my 100% trophy for Rebirth about an hour and a half ago, as of the recording of this video. So that's all done. Plat Trophy done. Unicorn Overlord comes out in a few days. The Lucilius fight in Granblue comes out on the 14th. Dragon's Dogma 2 comes out a week after that. So we got a busy month. On top of that, we are, of course, expecting the 14 and 16 announcements coming from PAX, which will be on the 22nd and the 23rd, I think. Not the 23rd and the 24th, if memory serves. I think that sounds right to me. Yeah, okay. Then we expect the 16 collab on either April 2nd or 9th. We're expecting the 16 DLC either at the end of this month or, shortly into April, probably right around the time the collaboration comes out. And yeah, so I've just been living it up on live stream on both YouTube and Twitch. Reminder that I stream on both now. So 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you feel like coming by and you don't see too much content actually being posted on the YouTube channel, then, that's always an option as well. I'll probably be including some Magic Spoon ads at the start of weekly Q&As, not this week, but next week and probably the week after that, just for similar reasons, because, they've been great to sponsor me, and then I got to make sure that I at least get something out for them every month, and I like to do right by them because they do right by me. But anyway, let's get into the Q&A, because I'm tired after doing, 10, 11-hour streams for the last several days to play through Rebirth on hard mode. I'm sure you can see it in my face. So yeah, let's get into that. Thank you to the sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. Nobody has to support. It's always an option between that, super chats, whatever your option is. As long as you enjoy my content, ask questions in the comment section, engage with it. That is more than enough for me, and I appreciate all of you who do that. Anyway, with that, let's get into it. Before I get started with the questions, apologies in advance. I just had lunch right before this. I made a nice piece of salmon with some, just some salt and pepper, a little paprika, in the pan for 8 minutes, 5 minutes on one side, 3 minutes on the other. And then had some vegetables, some broccoli, some water chestnuts, some mushrooms, slightly seasoned as well, a little bit of soy sauce in there. So I just ate. And especially with the soy sauce, I get all salivaty. So I delayed answering the first question because I was like, just trying to get rid of it all. It's not going anywhere. And I don't have any green apples in order to get rid of it. Fancy trick that I was taught by, I think it was Robbie Damon mentioned that as a tip for if you're going to be speaking into a microphone. So eat a green apple ahead of time. Yeah, I think it was Robbie. It's either Robbie or Max, one of the two. Anyway, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Oh, and then there's a line. Hello, and aloha, Happy. That means hello and goodbye. Next question. No, I'm kidding. First time asking a question, but longtime fan. Keep up the great videos. I'll do my best. Hope you've been enjoying your 7 Rebirth hard mode playthrough by the time you're reading this. Totally going off topic. What are your thoughts on the recent Pokemon Presents? And I'm specifically talking about the next big title. So I called it. Everyone kept asking me, what do you think their next big Pokemon game will be? Not any mobile game stuff, which was 90% of that, which I also expected. I said it'll be another Legends game. I felt really confident. It's way too early for another generation of Pokemon. We literally just got Indigo Disc not long ago. And I just felt in my soul that with how well the first Legends game did, it was inevitable. I mean, the Pokemon company and the games that Game Freak makes, there are a lot of things and not a lot of things, but the Game Freak themselves and Pokemon Company like to chase the success. If they make an offshoot and it's not popular and it doesn't do well, or at least not well by their insane standards, or at least not well enough that they think it's in some way helping push merch, then they don't do it. And so another Legends game, after how well the first one did, just seemed like a natural evolution. I will say this, though. I'm calling it pizza because it's Pokemon Legends, and then it's the Z, whatever it is. It's like Pokemon Legends ZA or whatever it is. So it looks like pizza. And also the map for the city that we're playing in looks like a pizza. So I'm excited for pizza. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, hello. Hi. You've said in the past for Garuda how many players did her mechanics in a different way from what Square Enix planned with Awakening Her Late. What are some other notable fights where players solved the mechanics in different ways other than what the devs intended? How about another Garuda story in the way that we did Garuda Extreme when it came out, which is very much not the intended way and by far the harder way. We literally just had one tank hold, I think it was Suparna and Garuda, and then the rest of the party dealt with Charada, and then we killed Suparna while they were on top of Garuda, or I think, yeah. And then we killed Garuda, which, A, insanely dangerous, B, incorrect, because the triangle strategy was what was intended, and C, a meme I'll never outlive. As far as I'm concerned, between that and Leviathan, those two guys, I think also the way we did Ifrit in our group, which was super overgeared, was very strange. I'm sure there are other ways, but it's not so much about what the devs intend sometimes versus ways they solve it. So like they obviously make mechanics and they make sure that it's solvable, but they don't just like make the strategy and then play the fight with the strategy they made. They make mechanics and the playtest team basically makes sure that it's doable. That doesn't have to mean they're given a sheet that says do it exactly this way, but the devs themselves, when they do create it, have kind of, and they've said, okay, well, this can be solved by doing this. But that doesn't mean that's the only way they're making it to be solved some of the time. So that's happened, I'm sure, across a number of fights. I mean, even just, honestly, you could just look at almost anytime we tank invuln stuff. Anytime they don't make tank invuln, like something go through tank invuln, where odds are we're cheesing something. You know, it's probably a great example of Phoenix in P3, because as if I needed to specify. There's like 3 or 4 different ways people solve that. You know, the devs didn't intend all of them or didn't plan for all of them, especially the like double tank invuln method that I honestly don't like. But that's definitely one of them. So yeah, that's another example, and I'm sure there's way more than that. Hashtag Happy Monday, Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hi. Hope all is well. Doing good. Question for you: who is your main mommy in Relink, and why is it Narmaya? So Narmaya won instantly because any character that reminds me of Virgil from Devil May Cry, again, as if I needed to specify, almost always gets a go. Ayaka, when I played Genshin, I basically didn't pull on anyone between what's her face, between Klee and Ayaka, which was like patch 1.1 and 2.1. So yeah, I went a pretty long time, and then I had like I have a video of that. If you haven't seen that, I literally saved like almost 500 pulls for Ayaka before the pities that they give you. So yeah, it was a heck of a time. But I actually really liked Ganda Gozu. I liked it more than I thought I would after I got used to doing his aerial perfect combos, which definitely seems like the way he's intended to be played. Or at least it's faster than doing his ground combos. You get to his Raging Fists way more often than you do if you just do the ground combo the entire time. Although the ground combo does have the ability to still give you some gauge, even if you screw it up, but it takes so long. So as long as you're confident doing those air combos, it's good. I like a lot of characters in Relink, though. But yeah, Narmaya definitely, because anytime there's a katana-wielding character, I almost always default to them. You know, Devil May Cry fanboy through and through. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. You may have answered this in previous Q&A. I've answered most of these in previous Q&As. Actually, not that last one, I don't think. But with how Dawn Trail zones seem to have overall higher quality environments with more asset density, has Square Enix mentioned anything about returning to older zones to rematch them? Yeah, the graphical updates are not just for the new zones. I mean, they even showcased doing things like, you know, updating the foliage in Ilmeg, for example. And, you know, that's not the only place they're going to be adding new stuff or changing new things. I mean, they've already said they're retroactively going back and kind of touching everything up. Now, I know you're specifically talking about object density, you know, the amount of boxes and whatnot. And I think they do also showcase, and then don't they show the docks in Thavnair in the live letter slash keynote thing? I think they do. I'm almost certain that they do as well. So yeah, they're clearly going to go back and touch up on other stuff, but I wouldn't expect a crazy amount of object density to be added to everything. Just, a few places here or there, as long with, the different texture updates and the grass and all that other stuff. And more specifically, they said that they would gradually do it. So yeah, they've already said they're going to do the thing that you're asking about. We just don't know the capacity with which they will approach it versus the newer zones. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. God, this has been got one. I ate food. My brain is just fried from these hours as of late. Anyway, got one that's been bouncing around in my mind, but only just remembered to ask it. Are there encounters in games, including 14, that you haven't done in many years, but instantly remember how to do them when you reach them again? Yeah, that's like everything. Like, honestly, people think I'm a full-on encyclopedia for Final Fantasy games. I genuinely forget things, like, by the time I'm done playing one. And then I need to, like, a great example in the original Final Fantasy VII. I know that that's kind of a hot button topic right now, but something really, really light. There's a vault that you can open, and there's a combination to the vault. I never remember the combination to that vault. Ever. I always have to check again, because I'm not going to try to do like the little things you're supposed to do in game to remember what it is. So I just say, whatever, just Google it. I can't be asked to remember 4 numbers across, the entirety of my life. So yeah, that happens all the time. But there's a lot of things that doesn't happen with where I do remember them as you've suggested. I'd say with 14, I often don't forget how to do fights. I more often forget to differentiate between the story mode version and the extreme version. And I know I'm not the only one that does that, because Shiva hard mode is one of the griefiest trials that you can get in a trial roulette. Because if you get a tank that only knows the fight on extreme or only remembers the fight on extreme mode, Shiva's tank buster is not a buster. It's a split damage AoE. So I have seen my fair share of tanks in Shiva hard mode and trial roulette just turn Shiva towards the group during the tank buster and murder everyone. So yeah, there's all sorts of different like levels that this takes place, but I often remember every fight well enough that there's I'll get like 90 to 95% of it, and then there'll be like that one thing like, oh yeah, that's there, forgot about that, and it'll usually be something inconsequential. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi. Quick question. With P12S kill near for the static I'm in, we are going to vote on what ultimate we want to do together first. I think I just had this question like last week or the week before from somebody else. The answer is always Uwu, specifically because it is the easiest. So the transition from Savage to Ultimate, that is the easiest entry point. Every other Ultimate, now I'm not going to give UCOB too much credit, but it is a good deal harder than Uwu, even if by current standards it's not that hard overall. Like all the DPS checks in the older ones basically don't exist. All of the major mechanics, they've been solved, and there's guides for them, and there have been for years. So they're easier than they once were. There's a reason why Death Cobb is a thing, where they died like 108 or 111 times and still cleared UCOB. Obviously, they're planning those deaths, so it's a little bit different, but you get the point. Start with Uwu, and then I'd vote moving up to UCOB or T, then the other one, and then you can fight over DSR or T. I'm sorry, DSR or Top. They both begin with T. It's been a long week. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. I like it. Hey, Happy. Hi. How you doing? You doing all right? Yeah, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You're talking about Alpha and Omega all over the places. What are some of your favorite locations? I saw Alpha overlooking Alexander and thought that was really cool. I think my favorite one is probably, there's, I think, 3 different spots you can find them in the playground in Rundown Garlemald. I think those are probably collectively my favorite. I think one of them he's at the top of a slide. One of them he's on a swing, and the other one he's sleeping. And I think the sleeping one is my favorite because he only has the sleeping location at night. And then if you sit with them until daytime, they get up and run off. So they actually like have that like long form interaction that comes with the time of day. Oh, and I think also if it's raining during the day or snowing during the day or something, then they stand in that spot instead and look up at the sky. So there's like a few different interactions in that singular spot. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Embrace Your Dreams. For those who missed it, I did dress as Zach for my first 2 days of playing Rebirth in hard mode. 2 questions, both Rebirth related. Well, if they're spoilery, then this question won't be there. And if they're not, then this question's being read. So, you know, I guess enjoy. Playing Rebirth, as most of us are, and I just wanted your take on their Far Cry style of open world maps. I know what you mean, and I don't really feel like it's that Far Cry-y. Let me finish reading. I tried to go in as blind as possible, as not wanting to know all the changes from the game that define my childhood. Honestly, you could have given me 30 guesses and Fantasy Cry 7 wouldn't have crossed my mind. As soon as I heard there was going to be a world map, I mean, it was a default thing to assume they were going to fill it with objectives. And I feel like they did a really good job with 7's open world for a couple of reasons. One, it looks enormous as you're walking through it. It feels enormous. But once you've actually explored the whole thing, you actually kind of realize that it's not that huge. You know, you can walk from one side to the other in like, 2 or 3 minutes for each of the individual areas, even if you just follow the path. And it's only because you have all of these separate things to do, a lot of which come with really great side stories that I highly recommend and power-ups for your team. That it's actually like ultra approachable. I'll definitely take it over some other, open world maps that we've had, especially in recent years, which feel like they are just chock full of empty space that has actually no meaning, but also doesn't feel like it kind of organically connects the areas within the map you're actually playing in. So it worked for me. Normally, I think that we've actually gone too far a bit with open world stuff. I think Elden Ring was an acceptable level of open world with a little too much open space, but with everything being so threatening in that game, every step you take can genuinely be, the last one that you take in that game. So the open world still manages to be quite frightening, despite the fact that I think it probably is on the verge of being too large. But this is just like, it's just the right size. It's just the way that that the density is done with the different objectives. I just think it works way, way better than a lot of other ones. Anyway, 2, graphics or performance? Oh, performance. I don't care about graphics mode at all. Like, I just want, like, if I have the choice between 60 FPS and 4K 30, I'll always take 60. And I'm not even like that crazy about playing games in 60 FPS. Like, I'll play an old 30 FPS game, 20 FPS game. I play games on the Switch. I can't be that picky about playing games at 60 frames per second because that console's not even capable of it, like 99.9% of the time. So, but if given the option, I'll always take that. So yeah, definitely performance mode for me. Good morning, Habs, and happy Sunday / Monday / I forget when you do the recording. Recording is on Sundays, unless I screw up and I forget. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I started playing Remake finally now that Rebirth is out. While looking forward to Rebirth, I'm having some difficulties in Remake. So I guess I have 2 questions about some specific mechanical things from Remake to Rebirth. 1, is the AI still as dumb? All right, let me read the rest because I have a comment on that. I'm not an action games person, but I set it to classic, then watch the AI stand around guarding while not being attacked, producing no attacks or generating no ATP, and it's frustrating, but they almost might as well not exist. So the whole point of that is that they want you to be swapping characters frequently. They won't use skills without you telling them to, so that way you can plan your ATP use. And they don't generate very often, so they don't screw up any combos that you're trying to set up. A lot of the time, and I've had this happen in both Remake and Rebirth, as someone who's poured collectively like 300 hours between the two at this point, I had plenty of cases where I plan out exactly how much ATB I'm going to get by the time the enemy is staggered. And that way I can make sure everybody has the right amount of ATB, and then I can just nuke the thing from 100 to 0 as soon as they're actually staggered. That's why they don't aggressively attack anything unless it is pressured or staggered. So it's not so much dumb as much as it's putting you in control of all the party members instead of automating them too much. Now, if you don't like doing that and you want to play on the easier difficulty, Rebirth does have some materia options that allows you to automate like specific actions. So you can sort of get them to auto battle a bit more effectively, but ideally still you're swapping frequently and telling them what to do. Barrett is a great example. Anytime he is in the party, I just swap to him, pop off overcharge, and then swap off because I know no matter what, even if he's not doing anything, that's all I need to do to get the ATB that I need. And it's usually fairly effective against a lot of opponents. So just knowing when you can swap in and swap out to do certain things like that goes a long way in both games. So the answer technically to your question is yes. And 2, Does dodging help more? If anything, I think actually, no. So Rebirth does have better dodging options. Some of them are tech specific. Great tip for those of you who like playing as Cloud. If you go to dodge with him and then you stance change, so you press circle, then triangle, and then circle, then triangle, it animation cancels the end of his dodge and allows you to go into the next dodge more quickly. There are also other things that you can take that make dodging a bit more effective, but it's more understood that blocking is going to be your more definitive way of dealing with a lot of stuff. So you generally don't want to sit there trying to dodge everything unless you really like playing a certain character that has a nigh invincible and a nigh like instant iframe access in one of her abilities. So yeah, that's those are some of your options. I saw somebody ask which Final Fantasy would you like to see on the Switch 2? I don't want to see any games on the Switch 2 because I think it's going to be just as garbage as the Switch 1 is. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hi, how are you? Good. I don't know if this would be a good question. I'm used to not getting good questions. There's always at least one. Maybe yours is the one. But I want to see if there's any insight regardless. How does these crystal ranked monks consistently pop 30k heal Riddle of Earth? I die when I tried because it's just too much damage. Okay, so I actually do have an answer for this. So it's not a bad question. You're not going to like the answer though. Final Fantasy XIV, especially in recent years, has become plagued with an overabundance of reliance on third-party tools. And there are a fair number of PvPers that have those kind of tools, and they do all sorts of automated stuff. Among them is smart using abilities in certain scenarios. That's one of them. There is almost assuredly a Riddle of Earth. I don't know if you'll program macro or just something, some automation of it that they're using. So I hate to tell you, but I think the answer, and I'm not saying you can't do this as a player. You totally can do it. So there's probably, I'm not saying that's every monk, but I'm saying this question is in line with the use of those specific tools. And so I wouldn't be surprised if a fair number of them are using third-party tools. Or just get better. One of the two. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Happy. Hello. I hope you're doing great. I am. Wanted to ask for your opinion on the possibility of Criterion Dungeon unsync in Dawntrail. Not going to happen. I hate to tell you, it's not going to happen. And I'm going to tell you one reason why. And keep in mind that this is based on how the game is currently. So technically it could change. And that is worth stating because I can be wrong and that would be fine. Number one, Criterion Savage, never. Number two, unlikely for Criterion because it's not done through the Duty Finder. It's done through the Criterion and Variant Finder, the VNC Finder, I should say. And that doesn't have an unsync option, which means they would have to go out of their way to program an unsync option into it. And quite frankly, I don't think they're going to do that. They've never really gone back and modified the not Duty Finder queue stuff to have more options. They've never done it with any other one, or at least none that I can recall off the top of my head. And so to expect them to do that with this, I don't think is likely. Hashtag MWMH. I see there's no hello. Oh my God, I forgot you're colorblind. So the thing I was talking about is what looks like a dot. Oh yeah, so on my Twitch stream, people have come in and asked about this. So I guess for me, when I look behind me, I don't think of my DDR pad as a handle. Like, I guess I'm so used to knowing what it's called. I think, oh, that's the bar. You know, that's just what we call it. Yeah, that's a DDR pad that's underneath this like tarp here. So that way my cats don't, you know, step all over it all the time. Yeah, that's what it is. It is a DDR pad, a metal DDR pad that's underneath, and it is attached to that handle, which is for stability. And the black is like grip tape, and it's awful grip tape. I still slip and slide, and that's why it's like not consistently applied there. So I actually need to take it all off and apply a different one that is more effective because songs get intense. And you know, I can't really grip the bar without feeling like I'm going to bring the whole thing down or just slowly slip down it with my sweaty palms. All right, that was technically the last question. Most of my comments are, again, it's funny because it seems like every week people who haven't seen me in a while see the thumbnail for the first time and it's like, bro, you look good. And I'm just like, Thanks, man. Really bad at taking, like, I've gotten a little better at it, but I'm still like kind of reserved about when people like, even when it's just a basic compliment, I'm just like, yeah, it's just trying to be myself and shrink into invisibility back here and whatnot. There's a few comments about alliance raid stuff. There was one question I think was a joke question, so I just didn't include it. Because it just, I didn't understand. I felt like I was something I didn't understand about part of it, and I didn't want to read it and not understand everything, so I was just like, whatever. A bunch of comments about the DDR pad, some comments about Granblue. There was a comment talking about how easy it is to get 900 tomes. I like to say this. It's easy when you play the game every day and you do a lot of different things every day. The whole 450 system is not there for people who play the game every day. It's there for the people who play the game 3 or 4 times a week. The 900 cap is when they just don't care anymore and they're just like, whatever. At this point, even if you only play 3 times a week, you've been playing 3 times a week. Even if you only had 200 tomes a week, you've probably gotten everything and then some at this point, so we really don't care anymore. But for the average person who plays 2-3 times a week, 900 is a decent amount of effort. Not everybody does Wondrous Tales. Not everybody does anything outside of Expert. A lot of people log in just to socialize and then do that Expert. And also doing Expert 7 days versus doing Expert, you know, like if you do Expert 3 days a week, you know, that's 270 tomes. I think it's 90 tomes per Expert. You're like almost there. I think that can encourage somebody to like kind of crank out the like something else. Like, oh, you know, maybe I'll just do something else or I'll do an extra or whatever. It's, you know, like they could kind of rationalize getting the other 180. If you played 3 times a week, did 1 Expert and you were 270 out of 900 and you were like, honestly, I just don't care. There's a lot of like balancing and like mental stuff that goes into it. And it's why sometimes when I answer questions, I answer them in a method that people like, LOL, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense because you have to look at it from a perspective that isn't just somebody who plays the game every day. You know, that's why I have to differentiate between the way I do things and what I do versus how the average person actually approaches video games. And not just Final Fantasy 14. I mean, video games. It's gotten a little bit more, how do I want to put it? Troublesome in recent years because of the increase in battle passes. So a lot of people may come home from work and be a part of like 3 or 4 different games that they, you know, picked up, or they may have to decide they only play one because they don't want to miss the, you know, they're getting FOMO, you know, they want to play, I don't know, they want to play Diablo 4 for some fucking reason. I don't know. They want to play Diablo 4 and, you know, work on the battle pass from that. And then they want to log into Final Fantasy 14 and work towards their tomes there. And, you know, maybe they work on some PvP. Like there's just an overabundance of systems like that like require or encourage daily logging in, that the paralysis of doing it every day sets in for a lot of people. And it's not something you should try to force people to expect or build systems around the thought that they could do that versus that's what the majority of people will do. So it's just a matter of looking at systems from different perspectives. It's why there are systems in 14 that people aren't a big fan of. The housing system, destroying your house after some time. You know, some people just get busy lives. And yes, you could argue if they have busy lives and they're not playing, they don't need the house. But, you know, at the same time, they may have waited months and months and months to get that house in the first place. Like, that's what I mean. There's always so many different perspectives that I can't ever act like, and sometimes I do this. I think we're all guilty of only thinking about what makes sense to us in our experience and not thinking about what the other experiences might be. But it's why I try to take caution with that now more than I used to, because there's just so many different life scenarios and things to consider. And I think you do have to consider them. I don't think you could just make stuff for the people who play every day. But I think 14's other problem is it doesn't make stuff for people that play every day. So there's like this weird like back and forth power struggle between the two groups and the dev team designing for those two groups that exists more so for us than it does in other games, or at least in ours, it leans more towards one side than it does in other, like other games definitely have more of the play me every day. I'm your first and only true love. And this game is more like, you know, we're friends with benefits. You know, I'll see you a few times a week, but you know, other than that, you can live your life. You know, Final Fantasy 14 is friends with benefits, you know, then that's where that ends. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's Q&A. Thank you for watching. Be sure to ask your questions in the comment section below. I almost said ask your comments in the question section below. Still technically accurate. And this week, hopefully I'll have more than one video. Hopefully I'll sit down and like brainstorm something. I also have to figure out if I'm going to play Unicorn Overlord for more than a day or two. We'll have to see how it actually does on stream. So if you want to watch me play that, be sure to watch my stream. I think on the 7th it comes out. I don't know what time it comes out on the 7th. So maybe it's not a stream till the 8th kind of game. We'll see. Anyway, with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.